You're over delivering, you're serving your clients well, you're doing all the things successful service providers should be doing. But somehow your business still isn't growing the way that you think it should. Now, you're not lazy, you're not winging it. You've built systems, you've shipped offers, you've poured your time, energy, maybe even your sanity into making this work. And yet, it's not working the way that it should. I've been there, and it took a surprisingly simple moment in the unfinished side of my basement to finally see what was actually going on. So let me show you the shift that changed everything. So since August 2024, I've been publishing 2 videos here on YouTube every single week. I haven't missed once. Now, why is that? Well, it's because I believe in the long game. I made a commitment to create 2 videos a week for 5 years, not even 1 year in yet. My thinking was this: if I just keep showing up, if I just keep delivering value, then eventually the right people will find me. The work will come. And to be clear, I still believe that's true. But here's the problem. You see, while I'm playing the long game, life is playing the short game. People have to eat, bills keep coming, and I have investments that I really don't want to touch, especially as the market is about to go up. So even though I was taking consistent action, I felt like I was losing ground. I had the systems, I had the experience, I had the content, but I didn't have what actually moves the needle. I needed new conversations with the right people. So here came a Saturday afternoon. I was standing in the unfinished side of my basement with a new set of mower blades I just bought for 88 bucks. And I was ready to install them because I was convinced that my old ones were shot. But then when I took a closer look, I realized they were actually fine. They weren't great, but they weren't done in either. I needed to just do a quick file on them and make them good for mostly another season. So the $88 wasn't wasted. I mean, I'm going to need the blades eventually, but I didn't need them right now. I just thought I did. And that's when it actually occurred to me that I do this, not just with more blades, but also my business. I spend money, I spend time, I spend energy fixing things that aren't actually broken. And I do it because it makes me feel productive. Meanwhile, I avoid the one thing that actually fuels everything else: lead generation. And that moment in the basement was humbling, but it gave me clarity that I hadn't had in a while. And so in this video, I want to walk you through 3 big shifts that came from that realization that I had, because I think you might be closer to a breakthrough than you might think. You've been consistent, you've been disciplined, you've been putting in the reps. And if you're anything like I was, you've also been wondering, why isn't this working yet? The systems are in place. The client work is strong. You're not scattered. You're structured. But the growth, it's not matching the effort. And that's the hardest part, because inconsistent results with inconsistent effort make sense. But inconsistent results with consistency, that's where frustration can set in. And I was there. For me, I showed up on this random Saturday when I picked up those mower blades, and I was sure that the old ones were just toast. But when I actually went, got the tools out, lifted the deck, ready to swap them, I took a closer look, and they weren't actually done. They just needed a file, not a replacement. Now, the money wasn't wasted. I'll use the new blades eventually. But it hit me that while I was standing there fixing something I assumed was broken, and this is how I run my business sometimes. It's not because I'm careless, not because I don't know what I'm doing, but because replacing something feels like progress. Shipping something new feels like growth. But if the thing wasn't broken in the first place, all I'm really doing is staying busy. Because everything can be improved, but doesn't have to be improved. I mean, it's a hard truth. It's a hard truth that effort doesn't guarantee growth, especially when the effort is misdirected. So that moment there in the basement forced me to ask myself this question: what else have I been replacing, rebuilding, over-engineering while the core issue hasn't even been addressed? And that's when lead generation came into focus for me. You see, just because something didn't work the way I wanted doesn't mean it didn't work at all. I mean, these 2 weekly videos, they're working. The systems and the assets that I built, they're working. The habits, the client experiences, the foundational strategy, it's all working. It just wasn't working in the right order. I have a great delivery machine, but I hadn't put fuel in it. I was optimizing systems without generating leads. I was replacing more blades that just needed sharpening. And here's the actual reframe that might help if you're in the same spot. All work works, as Myron Golden said many times. Now, even the misaligned work works, because if it didn't build your business, it built you. And the version of you watching this video, that version is clearer, it's sharper, it's more focused. You just need to shift where the effort goes next. And if you're like most high-performing service providers, over-delivering is your default. You care, you take pride in your work. You want every client to feel like they're getting more than they paid for. And for a while it works. It builds loyalty, it earns trust, and it generates referrals. Until it doesn't, because what I've learned the hard way is that over-delivering can actually become a distraction. It can feel like momentum, it can feel like growth. But sometimes over-delivering is just another way to hide from the work that actually matters. You see, I've never done outbound. I've never done cold email. I didn't do any direct outreach because, frankly, I told myself I was better than that. That kind of thing was for people who didn't have enough value to attract business organically. Now, I realize that wasn't confidence, it was actually fear. It was a fear of rejection, fear of not being perceived as valuable enough, fear that starting the conversation meant that somehow I was weaker in this negotiation dynamic. So instead, I over-delivered. I made sure that the work I did was undeniable. I stacked on extra value, more deliverables, bonus ideas. I polished my systems. And yes, it helped, but it also kept me stuck because I wasn't starting enough new conversations. Over-delivering became my hiding place. And the thing is, when I actually started thinking about cold calls and cold emails that I've received, that those that were annoying, and then there's those that were thoughtful and they're relevant, they were helpful, and I didn't mind those. I wasn't annoyed at them. In fact, I was actually grateful to be made aware of a solution that I didn't know about. And that realization actually cracked something open for me. If I don't hate cold emails, just the bad ones, and if they work when they're good and they're done right, then maybe the issue isn't the actual channel. Maybe it was me. Maybe my avoidance of outreach wasn't about strategy. Instead, the avoidance was really about mindset. So I actually just joined a program for freelancers, agency owners that do automations with a heavy emphasis on lead generation. I joined not because I was out of options, but because I finally saw the constraint clearly. I wasn't short on skills, I was short on conversations. And all my over delivering couldn't fix that. So if you're hearing this and it's hitting a nerve, you're not alone, because over delivering, it feels good. It lets us stay in our zone of genius. But if you're overworked, but your revenue isn't where it should be, then more delivery won't solve that. Only more leads will. And by the way, if you want to dig deeper into this idea, I have an entire video on why over delivering might actually be costing you clients. It's called Why Over Delivering is Costing You Clients. And you can check that out at the end of this video, or you can see the link in the description. But here's the quick takeaway for now. Over delivering does not replace lead generation. It does not replace outreach. It doesn't create conversations with new buyers. And if it's the only gear you know, then your growth will always be capped. It's hard to hear, but you can't over-deliver your way out of a dry pipeline. Once I had that realization that over delivering wasn't the answer and that lead generation was my real constraint, I realized I had a choice. I could choose to keep doing what I was doing by staying in my comfort zone, hoping someone would discover my work, waiting for the algorithm or the right introduction or a lucky break, or I could confront the thing I'd been avoiding all along, the work I didn't want to do, the work I thought I was above. The work I now know is essential for every sustainable business, building consistent, quality conversations with potential buyers. So I made a decision that I didn't feel entirely comfortable with, but I invested in a lead generation program with funds that could keep me from dipping into my investments next month. So I didn't join because I had money burning a hole in my pocket. I did it because avoiding this problem any longer was costing me more than I was willing to continue to pay. It was the kind of moment that most of us hit eventually. We can either get bitter or we can get better. We either keep circling the same mountain, looking for an elevator to the top, or we finally take the trail that's been there all along. So I finally started up that trail. And no, I don't have 3,000 leads a month flowing in yet. And I'm not trying to sell you any sort of magic email template or tell you how I built a 7-figure pipeline in 30 days. But what I can tell you is that every part of my business that used to feel stuck, now it feels aligned because I'm finally aiming my effort at the right target. So before this shift, spent hours, editing videos, building funnels, creating software, polishing systems, tweaking offers. Not because all those things were broken, but because they were safe. Now I'm actually doing the scary stuff. I'm learning cold outreach. And there's many ways to get clients, but while I never wanted to do cold outreach, I realized it was the thing that was actually holding me back. Now, will it be my main source of lead generation in the future? Probably not, but I knew I needed to make a decision. And so I decided that I had to do cold outreach to slay those limiting beliefs that I had in my head. Now, as a custom software consultant, I always worked on very long projects and relied on word of mouth. In this new world of AI, I realized there's many other problems I could solve for businesses much faster using my development skills. I decided to get back into the consulting trenches and tackle cold lead generation because I believe it will help me be better at helping you double your revenue, allowing you to work less. So here's what I've learned: avoiding the uncomfortable work does not make the work disappear. It just makes your journey longer. Truth is, the thing that you're avoiding right now, it's probably the most valuable thing that you could be doing. That client that you're hoping will magically appear, they're waiting for you to start the conversation. That offer that you want to sell more of, it needs eyeballs, not just polish. That next level of income and freedom that you're chasing, it's not behind a better system, it's behind more aligned action. So I encourage you to take a hard look at your to-do list, not the one on your screen, but the one in your gut. The thing that you know you should be doing, the thing that makes you uncomfortable, uncertain, maybe even a little insecure, and that's probably where your next breakthrough lives. You don't need to burn it all down. You don't need to start over. And you definitely don't need to add another dozen things to your already packed schedule. But what you do need is clarity. You need to know where the effort is going and whether it's aimed at solving the right problem. Now, I'm not here saying that building systems is bad, or that showing up consistently doesn't matter, or that over delivering always backfires, because all of those things are incredibly powerful when they're done in the right order. But if you're anything like I was, there's a good chance you've been doing great work, but in the wrong direction. And if that's where you are, I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not behind. And the work that you've already done still matters. All of it has been building something. Maybe not the level of revenue you're wanting yet, but it's building resilience, perspective, and focus. You've been sharpening your tools, but now's the time to use them on the right tasks. So here's what I'd love you to do next. First, if this video resonated, ask yourself, what's the thing I've been avoiding? What's the cold outreach equivalent in my business? What's the work that makes me squirm? But deep down, I know it's the lever that I've been ignoring. And second, if over delivering is part of your story, if you've been stacking value hoping that that alone would drive growth, then I got a video that breaks that down in even more detail. It's called Why Over Delivering is Costing You Clients. And you can check that out right here or in the link in the description. It digs into why giving more isn't always giving better and how to shift from overwhelm to clarity in the way that you serve. Because sometimes the real breakthrough isn't about doing more, it's about finally doing the thing that you've been avoiding. It's about thinking harder and then working smarter. So I'll see you in the next video.